Welcome to today's deep dive. I want you to picture a massive, almost futuristic taximeter.
Oh, yeah.
Just ticking away relentlessly, but it's superimposed right over a sprawling, humming server farm.
That's a terrifying image for an IT director.
Right, and that meter is running, it's moving faster than you can blink, and the catch is that it's directly tied to your company's IT budget.
Exactly. Every single tip.
Today, we're looking at a brand new, highly relevant article from a modern IT vendor management blog. It's titled, "The Token Trap: Is AI-Powered Outsourcing Killing Your ROI?"
That's a great piece.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to uncover the invisible, really rapidly draining costs that are currently hiding inside your AI outsourcing contract. And, of course, to figure out exactly how to stop the bleeding.
It's a critical conversation right now. I mean, the dynamic of the modern digital workforce has shifted so quickly.
So quickly.
Yeah, traditional financial models simply haven't caught up. We're looking at a complete transformation in how work is built and executed.
Which brings us to the central paradox of this whole situation.
Right.
If you look at outsourced IT vendors right now, on the surface, they look incredibly efficient. I mean, they are taking tasks that used to require 10 solid hours of human labor.
And cranking them out in just 3 hours.
Exactly, 3 hours. So as a budget owner, you see that and you naturally assume your return on investment is going to be massive.
Of course you do. It's basic math.
Right. But then the invoice arrives and that expected ROI is it's completely vanishing.
Oof. Gone.
Okay, let's unpack this. What exactly is the token trap and why is it destroying the savings we thought we were getting from all this newfound speed?
So what's fascinating here is how we have to look at the shifting economics of outsourcing in 2026. Historically, the core strategy was built entirely on labor arbitrage.
Finding a lower cost for a human hour of work.
Exactly. A traditional offshore human resource might cost you, let's say, $20 per hour.
That was the baseline metric.
That was the baseline. But now, vendors are heavily utilizing advanced AI to do that exact same work. And when a reasoning AI model attempts to execute a complex coding fix, it doesn't work by the hour.
No, it works by the token.
It works by the token. And that specific AI model can easily burn through $30 worth of compute tokens in the exact same hour that the $20 human used to work.
Wow. So the raw materials running the machine are literally costing more than the human hour they just replaced.
Precisely. And that makes sense when you look at how these vendors are actually deploying the technology. They're using what is essentially brute force AI.
Brute force AI.
Right. Instead of a human methodically working through a problem, vendors are letting autonomous AI agents just loop indefinitely to find a solution.
Like trial and error on steroids.
Exactly. The agent tries a fix, the compiler throws an error, the agent ingests the error, tries again, fails again.
And does this over and over at lightning speed.
Yes. It gives the illusion of intense, productive work, but every single one of those micro attempts consumes tokens.
Right.
So in these scenarios, the materials cost the AI tokens has officially exceeded the labor cost. The traditional dynamic of the IT services industry is completely inverted.
Which is a massive vulnerability if your vendor is still billing you on a traditional time and materials structure.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if you aren't explicitly accounting for that underlying token usage in the agreement, you're stepping right into the trap.
You really are.
You assume you're paying for a highly efficient worker, but you're actually subsidizing a digital associate that costs more to operate than the human being it replaced.
Yeah, you aren't capturing the financial value of the tech. You're just overpaying for speed. And it really comes down to visibility. It isn't necessarily that vendor partners are being intentionally malicious.
Right, it's not a scam.
No, it's simply that this new compute cost structure is entirely invisible under legacy contracting models. And as any IT leader knows, anything invisible is unmanageable.
If you can't see the tokens burning on the back end.
You have no mechanism to govern the cost, period.
To make it visible, the source provides a really helpful analogy to shift how we visualize this abstract concept. Because words like tokens and compute can feel a bit, intangible when you're reviewing a contract.
Very abstract, yeah.
So the shift is to stop thinking about buying traditional software and instead compare this to hiring a digital legal associate.
I love this analogy.
It's so good because with traditional enterprise software, it's like buying a massive law book. You pay for the license once, you put it on your server, and whether your team uses it 0 times or 10,000 times, the core cost is relatively fixed.
Right. But an AI model is not a static book.
No.
It's an active participant in the workflow. So taking that analogy further, this digital legal associate doesn't work for a flat salary. They bill you by the absolute second of their focus.
Meter is running.
The meter is always running.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you hand a document to this associate and ask if a standard non-disclosure agreement looks okay. The associate takes a quick glance, gives you a yes, and charges you for a minute of their time.
Highly efficient, very cheap interaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the cost completely changes based on the context you require.
Right. What if you hand them the exact same NDA, but this time you say, hey, before you give me an answer, I need you to carefully reread these 10 previous legal cases.
Oh, and your entire 200-page corporate policy manual.
Exactly. That associate is going to charge you for the hours and hours it takes to process all of that background text.
And they bill you for all that reading, even if their final answer to you is still just a simple one-word yes.
Wow. Yeah, that completely changes how you structure a query.
It really does. And bringing it back to the tech, that is exactly how these token models operate. You are not paying for access to a piece of software.
You're paying for processing power.
You're paying for the raw processing power required to fulfill a specific request. Every single prompt your team types, every document uploaded to the system, every piece of coding assistance,
Every autonomous agent loop,
all of it consumes tokens.
it's a meter that starts running the absolute millisecond the machine is asked to process information. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's actually look at the math on this. Using the 2026 average pricing for what the industry calls a frontier model.
Right, the heavy-duty, cutting-edge AI engines vendors are using for complex work.
Exactly. The baseline pricing right now averages around $15 per 1 million tokens.
Which sounds like a bargain at first.
It does. I mean, 1 million tokens sounds like an infinite number, making $15 sound negligible. But let's walk through some everyday workflows to see how this actually hits an enterprise budget.
Let's do it.
Think about a standard use case, like asking the AI to rewrite a quick email.
That's your foundational interaction.
Yeah.
You paste a 200-word draft into the interface, ask for a tone check, and it outputs a polished 150-word revision.
Okay, so what's the token count there?
The total token consumption for that entire interaction is roughly 460 tokens.
460, which comes out to about 0.7 of a cent, less than a single penny. So in this specific isolated scenario, utilizing the AI is drastically cheaper than asking a human colleague to proofread an email. It's a massive efficiency win.
Huge win, but
Let's scale it up to something heavier, like a contract review workflow.
okay.
You upload a full 100-page legal contract, that's roughly 30,000 words, and you request a concise one-page summary.
So for that task, because the input is so much larger, the total token count jumps to roughly 41,000 tokens.
Okay.
And the cost for that interaction comes out to 61 cents.
Now, 61 cents to review a 100-page legal contract still sounds incredible on paper. I mean, a human legal team would charge hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for that review.
Oh, easily.
But this is where IT leaders have to look at enterprise scale. If your vendor has an automated workflow executing this exact legal review process across a global organization, say, 100 times a day.
Suddenly it's $61 a day.
Right. Thousands of times a week. That 61 cents is no longer a negligible cost. It becomes a highly visible line item very quickly.
The volume creeps up. And it scales in a way that traditional human labor doesn't. But even those document reviews are relatively predictable compared to the real danger zone.
The recursive coder.
Yes, Scenario of the recursive coder. This is where IT budgets can truly hemorrhage.
Let's break down that specific scenario because this is the core of the brute force problem we talked about. You have an AI agent trying to fix a software bug deep inside a massive code base.
Right.
The agent initiates that loop. It writes some code, tests it, fails, reads the error message, analyzes the context, and tries again.
And again.
Let's say it loops 20 times. And every single time it loops, it has to read 5,000 lines of code just to understand the context of the error.
Okay, so the total token count for that one troubleshooting session explodes to roughly 2 million tokens.
Wow.
And the cost for that single session hits $30.
$30 for one bug fix.
Yes.
I mean, $30 might not sound like a full-blown crisis at first glance, but you and I both know how enterprise quality assurance works.
Oh, absolutely.
If you have an automated testing suite running 10,000 of these recursive brute force attempts over a weekend across a major platform update.
You are suddenly looking at a 6-figure invoice for compute alone.
Exactly. And the kicker is, The AI didn't even necessarily fix the bug.
Right.
It just tried repeatedly and burned massive amounts of raw processing power doing it. In just 30 minutes, this loop cost more than a junior developer's hourly wage.
And under a traditional contract, that compute cost is essentially passed through or hidden inside a generalized managed services fee.
So the buyer doesn't even see it.
No. The person who requested the bug fix just thought they were utilizing a helpful digital tool. They had no idea they were initiating a massive compute cycle.
To really get a handle on this, we need to look at the mechanics of the bleed. Like, why are some operations exponentially more expensive than others?
This raises an important question. Why does AI charge differently for reading versus writing?
Right. It comes down to the fundamental difference between input and output. Looking at the standard pricing models, input, which is the AI reading your prompts or uploaded documents, costs around $5 per million tokens.
Okay.
But output, when the AI is actually generating text or code and writing back to you, costs $15 per million tokens.
So it's 3 times more expensive to have the AI generate net new material than it is to have it analyze existing data.
3 times.
That output cost is wild when you look at the back end, but writing is inherently heavier mathematically for these models.
Explain that a bit more.
Sure. The hardware, the GPUs, they have to do significant computational lifting for every single individual character it generates. It's actively calculating probabilities to predict the next word over and over again.
Whereas reading is different.
Right. Reading, conversely, is a pre-processing step.
Yeah.
The system is just ingesting and mapping your data. It isn't actively generating anything new yet.
So generating text is a massive heavy lift for the servers. But the part of this that catches a lot of IT directors off guard isn't actually the output cost.
No, it's the context.
It's context persistence.
Okay.
This is the biggest shock for businesses. When you are in a continuous back-and-forth chat with an AI model, you naturally assume it remembers what you said 5 minutes ago.
Just like a human engineer would.
Exactly. But the AI doesn't have human memory. To maintain the illusion of a continuous conversation, the system has to literally reread the entire chat history every single time you send a new message.
That is the ultimate hidden multiplier.
Yeah.
It has to constantly refresh its own context window so it doesn't lose the thread of the troubleshooting session.
Let's walk through the math on that because the snowball effect here is staggering. Let's say your very first message in a support ticket is 100 tokens long.
Yep.
You pay for 100 tokens. Then you send your second message. Let's say it's another 100 tokens. The AI doesn't just read message 2.
Right. It rereads message 1 and then reads message 2.
So now you're paying for 200 tokens on that second turn. You send message 3, and the AI reads 1, 2, and 3. You are now paying for 300 tokens.
It gathers mass with every single exchange. By the time you get to message 50 in a long troubleshooting session or a complex architecture brainstorming chat,
Yeah.
you are paying to transmit a small novel's worth of data, reread 50 times over, just to send a tiny message that says, "Thanks, looks good."
That is unbelievable. You are paying for the entire history of the conversation over and over again every time you hit enter.
Every single time.
If your outsourced vendors are having hundreds of these long-running context sessions every single day to manage your infrastructure, that token burn compounds incredibly fast.
It's the definition of a compounding cost. And when you combine the high cost of output generation with the compounding snowball of context persistence,
That's a perfect storm.
it really is.
Eh.
You can see exactly how a seemingly efficient outsourced team can completely obliterate an IT budget without ever adding a single human headcount.
So what does this all mean? We see the trap, we understand the math, and we know how the costs compound. How does the listener actually protect their organization's budget from this?
The mandate for IT leadership is becoming very clear, starting with step 1,
Sure.
demanding token transparency.
Token transparency.
Yes, this has to become a foundational rule in procurement. You have to start treating token consumption with the exact same rigor that you treat cloud usage.
Okay.
Just like we have to monitor cloud egress fees, those hidden charges for moving data out of the cloud finding, we now have to monitor unit economics for tokens.
So ask for reports.
Exactly. You must require your vendors to provide detailed reporting. You don't just ask how many hours a project took. You specifically asked how many tokens were consumed to produce this specific deliverable.
You have to force them to show you the meter.
Yes.
And once you have that visibility, step 2 is you have to audit the production engine itself. You need to look closely at how your current contracts are structured. If your vendor is marketing themselves as an AI-first organization, then your commercial agreement absolutely must reflect that reality. You have to aggressively transition away from those traditional time and materials contracts.
Because if the materials in that contract are unbounded AI tokens, the buyer will lose every time.
Every single time, you need to shift toward outcome-based pricing.
Exactly. You pay for the completed legal summary or the successfully deployed feature, regardless of how many recursive compute loops it took the vendor to get there.
Put the risk on them.
Yes. By moving to outcome-based structures, you force the vendor to optimize their own AI usage. You make the token efficiency their internal margin problem, not your budgetary problem. Shift the compute risk back to the vendor where it belongs.
Which makes total sense. And part of managing that risk brings us to step 3, which is the most urgent technical advice in this space. Implementing a strict kill switch.
Oh, this is vital.
You must ensure that your internal systems and your vendor systems have rigid governance in place. There needs to be an automated circuit breaker to stop those expensive recursive hallucination loops we talked about earlier.
Right, the brute force problem.
Exactly. If an autonomous agent fails to fix a bug or resolve a ticket after 3 or 4 tries, the system needs to immediately halt the process and flag a human engineer.
Rather than looping 20 times over the weekend and blowing up your monthly compute bill.
Exactly. You cannot let the machine run unsupervised with the corporate credit card.
It requires a level of oversight we haven't really needed since the early days of cloud adoption. In fact, if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
we're basically living through outsourcing's cloud moment. Think back to when companies first migrated from on-premise data centers to AWS or Azure.
Oh, man, the bill shock.
Right. Early on, CIOs were getting caught completely off guard by massive unexpected bills because developers would spin up huge server instances and just leave them running over the weekend.
Because they were used to flat-rate on-prem servers.
Exactly. We had to learn very quickly that you don't manage a cloud environment by counting how many technicians are walking around a server room. That metric became completely irrelevant.
You manage the cloud by aggressively tracking the compute unit, the storage, the bandwidth, the processing power.
Yes. And the IT services industry is undergoing this exact same monumental shift right now.
It really is. For decades, the entire foundation of the outsourcing industry was built and optimized around the cost of a human hour.
That was the fundamental metric of value that every procurement department understood.
But AI has fundamentally changed the math. The human hour is actively being replaced by the compute token.
It is.
If you are sitting there today, still managing full-time equivalents, negotiating hourly rates, and counting heads, while your vendor partner is quietly burning millions of tokens in the background to automate that work, you are managing the completely wrong metric.
You're effectively paying premium, fully loaded human rates for a managed service, while secretly just being billed for raw hardware compute on the back end.
Exactly. To win in 2026 and to keep your enterprise ROI from vanishing into the ether, you must stop managing the clock and start managing the unit economics of the token.
It's a total paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And it requires procurement, IT finance, and engineering to all be on the exact same page.
Absolutely.
But looking at how fast this transition is happening leaves me with one final, rather provocative thought to consider.
Let's hear it.
If the entire economic model of modern enterprise work is actively shifting from measuring human time to measuring machine tokens, how is this going to fundamentally change the way we value human employees in the near future?
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. If an AI's open-ended problem-solving process gets too expensive because the token meter is constantly running and snowballing with context persistence,
Yeah.
does the supposedly slow human brain suddenly become the premium luxury option? Simply because a human engineer can sit in a room, review complex architecture, and think deeply about a problem for 5 solid hours without running up a massive compounding compute bill.
The slow human brain as the ultimate fixed cost asset in an enterprise budget. That is a fascinating angle to consider as these compute costs keep rising.
It really makes you think.
It does. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a hard look at those vendor contracts, demand visibility into the token burn, and we will catch you next time.